Hi, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and this is the second part of my review of the Boox page. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going through some apps on the Boox page and showing you what it looks like, showing you my settings I'm using for the apps, just so you can kind of get a feeling of the experience of using apps on the Boox page. The Boox page has its own built-in e-reader called NeoReader, and it also has a cloud service called Boox Drop that you can put stuff in Boox Drop, and then you can sync it with NeoReader. Unless there's a lot of comments asking me to do a tutorial or a video about that, I'm not really, because I feel like most of the reason that people are going to be buying Boox e-readers is so that they can have all of their favorite third-party reader apps available on one device. So they can have Kobo and Amazon and Pocketbook, all of those devices all on one thing. So the apps that I'm going to be showing today are the Nook app, the Kobo app, the Viz Manga app, Audible, GoodReads, and BookMory. And I'll go into the app, I'll go through it a little bit, I'll show you what my settings are for my e-reader, whether I'm using the best setting for reading or the best setting for animation. I didn't choose to do any videos because really, who's going to use this device for videos? I'll be doing this video and then a third video, which is just kind of going to be a wrap up and what I think of the device and my recommendations and what I think that its strengths and weaknesses are. So let's go ahead and dive into the Boox page and start opening up some apps. So let's get started. So you see I have my apps organized where all of the apps I'm going to use regularly are on the first page, and all of the system apps and stuff are on the second screen. You can move around your apps, but the default when you go to your apps, you cannot move them. To move your apps, you have to go here to this circle with the lines, choose sort by, and then choose sort manually. And once you do that, you can go ahead and move around your apps. So I'm going to start out with Audible. And this is the home page. This is the library. For Audible, since I'm not going to be reading, I went with a mode that was easier for scrolling through the screens and searching around the interface. So let me show you what I chose. So in my e-ink center, I chose speed mode, and in my refresh modes, I chose an animation filter time of 279. I just kind of set it to 300 just to cover some of the animations that occurred. But for me, I feel like this worked out best. And let's go ahead and, because this has a mic and a speaker, let's go ahead and listen to.
The story was set aside while the men tended to their dinners. Old Cobb tucked away his bowl of stew with the predatory efficiency of a lifetime bachelor. The others were still blowing steam off their bowls when he finished the last of his loaf and returned to his story. Now, Taborlin needed to escape, but when he looked around, he saw his cell had no door, no windows.
So you can see in Audible, I can use the page turn buttons to raise the volume up and down. Audible works just fine. Had no real issues. And as you can see, the speed mode looks just fine for scrolling. So looks perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and head out of Audible. And we already did Libby. So I'm going to go to Kobo. And for Kobo, I'm going to go home. And this is the book I was currently reading, The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. And for Kobo, I'm fine with choppy navigation because I'm going to mainly be reading. So the settings I chose for this, I chose normal, which is best for reading. And in my refresh modes, I didn't pick any refresh filter time. And the main reason I didn't pick any refresh filter time is because when you go into your Kobo book, these are all my Kobo books. Once again, it is a little bit choppy, but that's because my focus here is not about navigation. It is about reading. So when I open up Sherlock Holmes, and you'll see when I go through the pages, how it jumps through the pages nicely. And when I'm in Sherlock Holmes, once again, just jumping back to settings, you can see I'm still in normal. And one nice thing about the Kobo app is that with the Kobo app, if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, I can go to page transition style, and I can take out any animation so that there's no animation when the page turns. Like I said, this is choppy when I navigate, but that's because I put the settings to be the best setting for reading, because that's what I'm going to be doing mostly in the Kobo app. I also raised the font size so that it was bigger. So this works for me. You can see the reading experience in Kobo is perfectly fine. And if I wanted to change the font size, I keep doing that. If I wanted to change the font size, then I would just go to font and tap. If I wanted to make it smaller, go to font and tap. And this is the font size that's the most comfortable for me. But you can see you can make it smaller if you want, but I like this font size. And I almost always go with publisher default for the font size. And you can see it's got the name 14 of 513. So works perfectly fine with Kobo. I have no issues for reading. If you wanted to have a little bit cleaner navigation, a little bit cleaner animations, then you could just go up to Regal or Speed for a little bit cleaner animations. All right, let me get out of Kobo. And I'm going to go to Viz Manga. Somebody had asked about manga. I don't really read manga books, but somebody had asked about manga. So I'm going to jump to Viz Manga. There may be a little noise in the background, but that's just my heating system going on. So don't stress that. Hopefully you can hear me clearly through it. Let's jump to Viz Manga. And for Viz Manga, the setting I chose is I chose Regal because I am going to be doing a little bit of scrolling and a little bit of page turning, and I don't really need the best possible text reading experience. So let's pick a manga. And you get some free offerings. I'm going to pick one of the free offerings. Like I said, I know nothing about mangas, so I'm just picking one. One thing I did quickly learn with mangas, though, is that you actually read them the reverse of the way you read American comics. So normally I was tapping here and nothing was happening. I finally realized you have to tap here for something to happen. And actually with this, I forgot, you got to swipe. And you can see that is nice. I myself feel like this is the best mix of both. I could go with faster animation with more ghosting. Go to speed mode. And you can see this has even cleaner animation. But, you know, and still the text is very readable. Once again, since you're not reading tons of text, this is a perfectly fine option too to go with speed mode for manga and comics. And let me go back out. And out again. And this is just the latest free chapters, but you can see I can scroll. I can look at popular manga, latest chapters, one-shots. I can subscribe. So you can see the navigation is pretty nice. There is a little bit in the background that you can see, but it's not that big of an issue if the main focus is just kind of a clean scrolling experience. So actually, that's surprisingly fine for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of that. We did Pocketbook, we did Hoopla, we did Kindle. So now I'm going to do Barnes & Nobles. Barnes & Nobles also has an option where you can take out the page turns. This is my Barnes & Nobles library. The settings I chose for Barnes & Nobles. Once again, I see I'm on speed mode, but I'm actually going to change that to normal. I want the best reading experience possible. I'm fine with the choppy navigation since most of the time I'll be spending in books. And let's see, anything else I want to turn down my color filters. And for my refresh modes, good, those are all low. And let me open up a book. I'll go with let's go with Number One Detective Agency. And the text here I also made bigger. Let me just, I keep doing that. So if I go to my text, they just, their navigation, you know, is a little bit different. They have the pluses and the minuses, so I can make the text smaller. Make the text bigger, which, you know, at this size I like. And what you can also do is go to the settings, and this setting is the book's reading settings. And if you look at everything, you can scroll down and page turn effect. So you can see for books, I have none. You can also include a page turn effect for magazines and newspapers, but sadly they don't have none. You can only get slide and curl. So if I did read a lot of magazines and newspapers, then I probably would have to go to the setting animation filter, and I'd have to probably raise that and play with that till the animation filter cut out the page turn so it wouldn't be as choppy. But with a magazine, I probably might go a little bit easier on my settings so that it would be okay with more animation even if the reading experience wasn't as good. So get back out of that. It takes me back to the book, and you can see the page turn experience is perfectly fine. Nice and quick. And that's because I made the main focus text, so it's also a nice experience to read. All right, let's get out of that. And the next thing I wanted to do is once again, I'm just kind of picking stuff I think people will use. So I figured GoodReads. And once again, I live near train stations, so every now and then I get the train whistle coming through. So this is my GoodReads. And for GoodReads, the settings I chose speed, since I'm really going to be navigating through GoodReads a lot more than the other apps, and I'm not really going to be doing a ton of critical reading. So this is one of my friends, Will, and I can see what he's reading. And if I want to go to my books, and I can see what I'm reading and pull that up. If I want to pick a book and rate it, then I can rate the book how I want to. And I can change that setting if I wanted to. Read, currently reading, want to read, if I want to. But this navigation is perfectly fine. Like I said, I have this on speed mode, so that the navigation is really the key thing. And I can go, if I go to Discover, I can go to Show More Lists, Featured Lists, Best Books Ever. And you can see Want to Read. I can change it around if I want. And that's GoodReads. So let me get out of that. And the last app that I'm going to be showing is my reading tracker that I use, that is for Android and iOS. My favorite reading tracker is Bookshelf, the reading tracker, but it's only for iOS. So I've been playing around with BookMory, which is another reading tracker that I like, but that's cross-platform, so I can actually use that on this device or on an iOS device. So let's open that up. So you can see this is the book I'm currently reading. You can see if there's any notes that I wrote. You can see achievements. These are all the books that I've read. And the settings that I'm using for this is A2, because there were a lot of animations on this, but I could even go down to speed and it'll give it a little bit better picture and still be pretty good with the animations. These are all the books I've read in this when I was testing this app out. These are all my settings. And let's say I wanted to start a reading session. What I could do is this little clock here. I just press that clock and start reading. And let's say I start this clock. What I can do is, while the clock's running, I can go to, let's say, Kobo Books. And start reading. And remember, this has a speaker, so when my reading session, when I'm done with my reading session, I can, it's a couple ways I can do it. I can hit the quick button and pull up all my apps and just jump back to BookMory. You see it still keeps counting on its own. You can even set the countdown, so you can set a certain amount of time, hours and minutes if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that. And then if I want to jump back to my book, then I can just go ahead and jump back to my book. So that's really cool that you can set up a reading tracker in here so that you can use the reading tracker while you're reading the book on the same device. Gonna go jump back to that. And just in case you forgot, these are my settings for this. I'm using speed mode. I'm actually going to turn down the color enhancements. They're not really that needed. And I'm not going to go through with this. Do you want to exit? Okay. And now I'm back to my main page for the book that I'm currently reading. And if I want to see all the books that I read, I can jump here. And just so you can kind of see, this navigation is pretty good. There is some ghosting. And if I wanted a little bit better contrast, then you can see there's a lot more ghosting. It's a lot choppier when I move, so I'm not going to really be using that one. And with A2, you can see it's really smooth, so I do think I'm going to stick with A2 probably, because like I said, this app has a lot of animations. All right, I'm going to get out of here. And that's pretty much it. Those are the apps that I decided to showcase in part 2 of this review, which was Audible, Kobo Books, Viz Manga, the Barnes & Noble Nook app, GoodReads, and BookMory.